everyone, how's it going? My name is Jay and welcome to the channel. Today we're back here in Sannikovland in Planet Zoo. Now for those of you who are new here, Sannikovland is my current project in Planet Zoo. We're working on creating this really modern zoo in this lovely lush tropical environment. If that sounds good to you, please do consider hitting the subscribe button, and of course like the video if you did like today's video. With the intro out of the way, let's talk about what exactly it is we're doing today. Now, today we're going to be building our kangaroo habitat. Now, this will be the last of the habitat animals from the new Australian pack. We have covered, of course, the cassowary first, then the koala, then the dingoes, and now we're going to be covering quite possibly the most iconic Australian animal of all time, probably tied with the koala, and that will be the red kangaroo. These guys are amazing. I think they're so cool in the game and in real life as well. I think just kangaroos in general are just the absolute most bonkers animal you can think of. Not saying that there are lots of, strange animals out there. There are plenty of strange animals out there, but when it comes to megafauna, like, big animals, and you think of kangaroos, they're just so weird. Like, no offense to the kangaroos, but, I love weird animals. They're just so odd when you think about them, because being marsupials, they just don't fit into any traditional niche. They're not like antelopes or deer, which would be kind of a similar niche in terms of grazing animals in other continents. But it's just, I don't know, I just think they're so strange and I absolutely love them in the game. Their behaviors are so cool to watch. So we'll be building them a nice big habitat for about 10 kangaroos, I believe, or 9, something like that. There'll just be the one male and a bunch of females. And I wanted to give them a big open area to explore and have a lot of fun in, and just a big space for them to hop around in, because watching them hop around and use that animation that they have, it's so cool. And I think it just really fits, like it's really seamless, and their hopping animations are like, honestly, huge kudos to Frontier. They've really outdone themselves with the animals in this pack. Like, if I were to rank the animals from each of the DLCs, this is 100% number one. Easily, I feel like they've put in just so much effort and like real attention to detail in making the animals in this pack really feel real and alive, and I think it really shows, especially with these kangaroos and the koalas being, the first animals to have like pouches and joeys. So yeah, huge props to Frontier, you guys did a great job. Anyways, as you can see, I've just introduced a bit of a pond here. I am sticking with that idea that I introduced in the last episode, where the Australian section was probably at one point an African section, and they've kind of remodeled it and recycled it to be an Australian section and moved the African section to that really large area that we were working on before we started the Australian side. And with this, I imagine this used to be kind of a habitat for like antelopes or gazelles. Maybe they used to have a herd of Thompson's gazelles out here, or maybe even springbok. And with time, as the Australian side moved in, they thought this would be a great place for kangaroos. And that's what we have here now. This little pond in the middle might seem a bit odd, like you don't really associate kangaroos with water. But as we'll learn in a little bit, they're actually pretty good swimmers, which is quite a cool fact about them. And you know what, while we're doing all this building, let's get into the species profile for today. Now, the species profiles, of course, for those of you who are new to the series, we talk about a new animal every time we do a Sannikovland episode featuring a new animal, just to learn a little bit more about them. So I'll get the species profile for the red kangaroo up on screen now. So as you can see, this is a red kangaroo. That's a very intimidating picture of one. So their scientific name is Ophthronta rufus. They are thankfully least concern. In fact, they are considered a pest in some areas of Australia because they're just so prolific and they kind of exist all over the place. In fact, some areas start culling them for food. I can't say that I would ever want to try kangaroo meat. I don't think I would, but apparently that's a good way to manage the population. Though, just because they are so prolific and they breed so quickly. They are very large as well. These are the largest of the kangaroo species. Males can get up to 90 kilograms, or about 200 pounds, and about 2.8 meters long. And standing up, they can get to about 2 meters tall as well. So they can pose very, can strike a very intimidating figure, really. Their habitat is scrubland, grassland, and desert, all the kind of drier drier environments. Their lifespan is about 23 years, so they do live a decent while, and they eat almost entirely grasses, forbs, just basically all green vegetation, though they can eat dry grasses as well. Now moving on to some interesting facts about these guys. Like I said, they're the largest kangaroo species, and in fact the largest marsupial on Earth. They are really quite big and very intimidating, like I said. When they forage during the day, they tend to stick to smaller groups, maybe 2 to 4 individuals, but occasionally if an area is very lush and has a lot of their favorite grasses and stuff, lots of kangaroos will gather and they can form foraging groups of up to 1,500 individuals, which is crazy. Imagine walking into a field and seeing 1,500 kangaroos just chilling. Be crazy. Like you might know, kangaroos of course have pouches which they keep their baby joeys in there, and at birth the kangaroo joeys are only about the size of a cherry. They are so tiny, and that's why they finish their birth development within the pouches, and only once they're big enough do they actually emerge from the pouches. While they're that size, they obviously can't exactly walk around, but just that is such a crazy thought that these big animals about the size of a person, when they're born, they're only the size of a cherry, which is so tiny. It is pretty crazy. Another cool fact about these guys is that, and I absolutely did not know this, they're actually really good swimmers. This is again like that thing with the camel where I found out camels are good swimmers and I'm like, what? That's crazy. So yeah, kangaroos are great swimmers. They've been seen escaping predators by jumping into rivers, and there's even been recorded cases where if a predator tried to follow them into a river, the kangaroos would actually hold them down and drown them, which is kind of badass. I can't believe I'm saying that, but yeah, it's kind of cool that they have such interesting defense mechanisms. So do feel a little bit bad for the predator, but nature and all that. Kind of crazy, but still very interesting nonetheless. Now let's talk about the habitat itself and what we've been doing. As you can see here, I'm just building a staff area to go behind this habitat. This will also be the staff area for the next habitat that will be on the other side of this, and you'll see that sometime next week maybe. Like I said in the previous episode, I'm doing a big move over to the UK. I'm recording this literally the morning of my flight, and by the time this video goes out, I will probably already be in the UK. So you guys will maybe get slightly inconsistent videos the next couple of weeks while I settle down, but I'll try my best to get things up and running as soon as possible. And yeah, the next habitat I'm thinking will probably include the saltwater crocodile, because classic Australian animal right there. And then we'll move on to the kind of Southeast Asian animals as well, because of course this is an Australasian section, not just an Australian section. And of course we still need to include all the exhibit animals. We still have the new blue-tongued skink, and we have a few other Australian animals like the eastern brown snake and a couple other things like that. So definitely look forward to all those future builds. Here I've just covered up the roof of the new staff area. Relatively straightforward here. I like doing these layered roofs just to make them more interesting. Here's just like a quick tip for you guys who are building buildings with flat roofs. Always make sure your flat roofs overhang slightly. It just gives it a little bit more of a finished look. If it doesn't overhang, it just kind of looks like a cube and it's not really great. And having layered roofs like this, essentially putting up another 1 meter wall kind of within your roof section, and then putting another roof layer, just gives it a bit more interest, and I think it just works really well to make your building kind of feel a bit more realistic and a bit more, complex without adding in an actual awful lot of complexity. I've added some rooftop windows here just to make it again look like the building has a bit more light. A few windows on the side, nothing too fancy here. Of course you can see the mulch sides there. That's just going to be full of some nice tropical looking plants, because again these mulched areas are more of a gardening type situation as opposed to trying to emulate the realism within the habitats. Here I'm trying out a custom fence idea. It turns out pretty cool, but I'm not going to use it for this habitat. I'll probably save it for a future habitat at some point, just because it didn't really fit here. And for the Australian section, we already did kind of establish a sort of fence kind of system that we did in the previous two habitats that I wanted to carry over. Here I'm adding in these rooftop pieces. They're from the workshop as always. The link will be in the description. The creator who made this, I can't quite remember who it was, but these pieces are absolutely like the most valuable things, honestly. They make any rooftop section just look so much more realistic. Highly recommend these pieces. Definitely go check them out, and of course give it a like in the Steam Workshop. It'll support the creator. I can't remember who it was exactly, but yeah, they're really priceless stuff. You may have noticed I also changed the colors of these canopies throughout the Australasian trail, from just green to also having these yellow intervals. I really love that warm yellow color because it pairs so well with our Sannikovland like pale green, and again ties into that Sannikovland color palette which we've been developing over the past however many episodes. So yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Here I just created a bit of a rock formation on top, just for the kangaroos to climb on and get a good vantage point. I did notice the walls were a bit short between this and the dingo habitat, and I do not want a kangaroo jumping into the dingo habitat because dingoes are a natural predator of the kangaroo, which is not ideal if they accidentally crossed over there. So I just created a bit of a metal grate on the top just to deter either species from trying to enter the other. Now I'm starting with some foliage, a big tree next to the rock formation to provide some shade. Again, really loving these eucalyptus plants, the rainbow and the stringy wood. Both are so good. Really love these new plants. Every new pack we get, I feel like they improve their foliage, and it's brilliant. Though I would say I did prefer overall the foliage in the South American pack. I gotta say I love the eucalyptus plants and some of the new smaller plants as well. They really add a very nice kind of it's almost an in-between point between like a tropical tree and a really arid tree, which works in kind of an in-between state. Don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but basically I can put them both here in Sannikovland, which is a tropical park, and also in like a grassland park or a desert park, and it still looks pretty good. And there's not an awful lot of trees that can do that kind of thing. For example, all the kind of pine trees, the kind of conical, conical type trees, those always just work in like taiga regions and stuff like that, as opposed to being really generic enough to use in places like Sannikovland. Oh god, apologies for the noise if you can hear that. That really obnoxious motorcycle just drove by outside. Hopefully when I move over to the UK I'll have a much quieter room. Who knows? I am living next to a train station, so might have to do some soundproofing, but we'll see. Here I'm just making a little canopy umbrella type situation so that the kangaroos have a place to chill and laze around underneath. I love the animations the kangaroos have for when they're kind of just lying down and chilling. It is so cute and they just look so sassy. Oh my god, they're amazing. Really, I just can't say enough good things about this pack. Like, the animals especially, just really, like, huge props to Frontier. Absolutely love the effort and the care they've put into this, and it just gives me such like hope for future packs, because I know now that they're willing to I knew this all the time, that they were always gonna really take that care and effort with these animals, but them introducing these new animations with the joeys and introducing these animals which require entirely new rigs and stuff like that, and really taking the care to make them look good and behave realistically, that really just makes me feel like whatever we get next, we can safely say that Frontier is absolutely giving their all, and they always have been. So I'm very much looking forward to what we get next. Here's me just finishing up this little canopy thing. Just some metal frames around the outside. Again, love these new metal pieces from the Australian pack. Very versatile, they're generic enough to be used kind of anywhere throughout the park, which again is absolutely brilliant. Like with packs like this, I love that we don't just get themed items, we also get lots of generic like items that we can use kind of anywhere we want. And here I'm just kind of placing a few of these umbrella canopies all throughout the habitat. Again, I think this would probably have been an antelope habitat at some point, and then they just recycled it or upcycled it to be a kangaroo one. Adding in some enrichment here and there. You will have seen I added a lot of plants as well, lots of these common reeds and a lot of the wattle bush. I called it a hawthorn bush. There's a similar plant called a hawthorn bush in the game. It's actually a wattle bush, and they work really well in this area of the park. They again are one of those plants that are arid enough to give this an arid feel, but don't look out of place in a tropical habitat. That's me getting rid of that experimental fence and bringing back these platform things. I know it looks like the kangaroos can kind of escape like out of these fence, but here you can see I'm just lowering the terrain slightly. And when you see a kangaroo next to them, you can very quickly tell that the kangaroos can't actually jump over because the scale is definitely a bit too intense for them. They cannot really leap over that and get out of the habitat, so it's all good there. Get more foliage here. This is one of the tricky things with open habitats like this is you start finding it difficult to really fill up the open space. It's quite tricky to do that without making it look kind of unnatural. So yeah, I'm just double checking the kangaroos to see how many we can actually fit in there. And yeah, we're actually coming quite close to the end of the episode now. Right now all I'm doing is just tweaking things, giving it just a few last minute things. Of course, adding in the foliage and the planters. Again, want it to look a bit more tropical, so a little bit more of these vibrant greens and you know, a few of these low-lying plants and some bracken. I think that looks pretty good. And I will of course introduce the new fan palms, which are beautiful. Really love those plants. I think they look stunning and they really work well as a planter plant. A planter plant? Wow, that sounds strange. You know, a plant that goes in planters in decorative areas. I think that looks so good. One of the last few things I'm going to be doing is of course just finishing up the fence around the side. Again, wanted to use some of that some of this corrugated metal fence that we used for the dingoes. It's probably one of my favorite fences in the game. I think it looks great. Very, again, utilitarian a little bit. Not too like fancy, nothing too like sleek or good looking, but I think it works for what we require. And then of course I'm going to use the rocks themselves to kind of add the borders. So again, it looks like there's some formed rock here as opposed to just purely the fence. Here I put in the null fence because I thought at the time I'm just going to use rock for the curved piece, but then I decided that could be a good vantage point. And in a second you're going to see me replace that null fence with the steel mesh, which looks pretty good. Of course, if you want to use curved pieces, you can use the glass first, and then after that just replace it with whatever fence you want. In my case was the steel mesh. I think it looks great. And just to tidy things up, of course, more rock work. And to make things look a bit more interesting as well, just use these little rock pillars at the bottom. It clears up kind of that area where the fence fades into the ground, so it looks a bit more clean and a bit nicer. Anyways, we are coming up very close to the end of the episode now, so just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks so much for the 800 subscribers. We are climbing fast. We're already at 810, which is amazing. Really love that. If you want, feel free to join our Discord server. We've just finished up our first Planet Zoo challenge, and I'll be making a video showcasing the submission sometime next week. We'll definitely be doing more challenges like that. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun way to kind of give you guys some inspiration to keep building, and just a great way to share our own building stuff. And yeah, pretty much it. If you did like today's video, of course, feel free to give it a like. Comment down below, let me know what your favorite part of this habitat was, which of the Australian pack habitats that we've done is your favorite, and which of the animals in the Australian pack is your favorite. I'm happy to hear all of that and always very much willing to have a conversation in the comments. Always love hearing from all of you. Anyways, that's about it for today's episode, so if you enjoyed this content, you want to see more, please do hit the subscribe button, and as always, I will see you all in the next one. Bye!